Okay. Well, welcome everybody. We're getting underway. So let's get started. Let's just start with a couple of housekeeping bits. We have everybody unmuted so that we can be interactive here. So can you just say your name to make sure that we've got the controls right? Just say hello, say your name, say anything.
So when we started, Amy, the recording did say they were in listen-only mode.
Okay. So David, can you flip everyone to a microphone, please?
Yes.
Okay, let me know when that's done. Are we done?
I'm still working on it.
Okay. All right. So here's while we're working on. Just interrupt me, David, when you have that. I'll just give you a couple of pieces here of how we're going to work. What I'd really like to do today, if we can really quickly, is just have everyone introduce themselves, just your name and where you're from and what angle you're looking at copywriting from. In other words, are you writing for your own business? Are you writing for your job? Are you looking to become a freelancer? Are you already a freelancer? Just getting a sense of who's here and what you're looking for will help us to tailor the material a little bit more, just to know who needs what. So that'd be really helpful. So when we get the audio controls going here, I'm going to ask you to do that and just go around real quick. The other thing that we'll do, we've got a lot we're going to cover today. We're going to go over some basics, and I want to give you a lot of information quickly. So I don't think we'll have a ton of interaction today. That said, we'd really like you to get the maximum out of this. So if you've got questions, we want people to be able to ask them. We're going to try, we're a pretty small group, we're 14 people, so we're going to try, in addition to the presenters, there's 14 of you, we're going to try to keep these open if we can. And let's just see how that works. We've got a number of options. We can be open mic and actually discuss things and have you ask questions. We can certainly always use the chat box. And so if you can't be heard or if you've got something pressing, put it into the chat box and we'll see it. And that goes for anything that you need clarification on, any questions you have. We want to make this as much about you and hope for you to get as much out of it as possible. And I think that's the best scenario is if you can raise your hand and ask a question. So David, do we have people audioed up?
I think it's on Jillian's control screen, actually.
I'm sorry?
I think it's on your screen, Jillian. You have to unclick so you do it individually.
I'll give each person a microphone.
I don't have people to give a microphone to. There's no list.
Your attendee list?
There's no list. I have just the number of them. So well, let's just try this. Does anybody else have the microphone on their screen? You know, underneath the orange, do they have that? The orange arrow?
Okay, so we'll try one thing, and if we can't fix this, what I'm going to ask you to do is type it in and we'll move forward so we don't waste any time. There should be a toggle that you all have on your GoToWebinar control panel. There's an orange arrow, and below it there's a green microphone, and that should be a toggle switch too, and you can mute and unmute yourself. And when you put your cursor over the microphone, it'll tell you people can hear you, click to mute, or people can't hear you, click to unmute. So give that a try and see if anybody can just click that and shout out to us. Okay, so we've obviously got something to work out here. So what I'd like to ask you to do then is, if you would, go into the chat box and just type your name, your city, and like I said, you know, what you're coming to the class for. You know, you're coming for your, you know, because you own a business, because you want to learn to write copy better for your job, you're a freelancer, you want to break into freelancing. If you just type that into the chat box, that'll give us a sense. That'd be really helpful. So let's dig into our copywriting fundamentals. And in the meantime, we'll get that information from you. If you can just pop that in real quick. Okay, so Jillian, can you give me a slide, please?
Well, I'm trying. There we go.
Okay. So the first thing that I want to say to you about copywriting is anyone can master this skill. People often ask about that. Do you need a degree? Do you need to have some certain background? The truth is, I think you need to be persistent. You need to have an interest in people and probably in psychology and what makes us tick. And you need to be patient and to practice. It's a skill that you can build with time, and there's some simple rules that you can follow, and we will be giving you a lot of them. I'll be giving you some of them today, but as we move through this course, you'll really have enough of the basics that if you were to go out and practice and work on your copy, you'll be able to.
Welcome to GoToWebinar, Web Events Made Easy.
For some of us, we take it as criticism, but it really isn't. It's great to have somebody who can point things out in your copy, and it's a really good idea to copy other people that you like. In fact, one of the things that we're going to do, one of the assignments this week is going to be to copy a sales letter. We're going to do two things this week to get things off to a quick start, and you'll be surprised how much you can learn by copying. And I'm not suggesting plagiarizing, but I'm talking about copying the techniques and actually writing out longhand, which will be one of our exercises. Some good copy, so you can get a sense of.
Welcome to GoToWebinar, Web Events Made Easy.
So we've got one person talking and one person operating the slide. So what I'm going to do, Jillian, is just ask you when I need them turned. So if you would, please.
I've actually just done that. There we go.
Okay. So when you're writing copy, you're always focused on the prospect. It's always about that person that you're writing to. And so what you want to do is get a clear picture of that person in your mind. And you literally want to paint as vivid a picture as you can, because you want to be writing to one person. So if you can see that person in your mind's eye, who are they? What gender are they? How old are they? What's their lifestyle? What kind of place do they live in? What are their habits? What's their age? What keeps them awake worrying at night? We'll give you some examples of some copy here in a moment. But imagine one of the things that we're going to work on today is a piece for men who are balding, men who are losing their hair. And so picture, what does that conjure up for you? If you got an assignment to write an ad, say, for a hair growth product, who do you picture? How old a man do you picture? What race do you picture? What nationality? Can you think of somebody that that's balding and picture that person in your mind's eye? You want it to be that specific. So I'm wondering if we are unmuted now, because I'm hearing.
It looks like you have an open up mic. Why don't you see? Yeah.
Yeah, we are.
Excellent.
Should we all
okay,
mute
good.
ourselves again?
Well, no. You know what? Let's interrupt real quick. If everyone's got a mic, I would really like to get everyone's name, city, and why you're here. But not so much your music or your cell phone. So just go around, shoot out, throw me out your name, your city, and why you're here.
My name is Dan Chickarell. I live in El Sobrante, California. I used to be a news anchor 30 years ago, 25 years ago. I lost track. And work in marketing and to become a freelancer, or ideally turn this into a career path.
Okay, cool.
Amy, let me clean up something here for a minute. So now that we're open mic, every noise that you make, everybody else can hear. So what you have to be really totally present. You can't be in the kitchen. You have to be present here, not doing anything else. And then we'll unmute you or mute you back up if we have to. But for a moment, if you could just all stay clear and right here, that would be great. Okay, sorry, Amy, but you had lots of noise in your background.
We do. So now, Dan. So thank you, Dan, for getting that started. If you would now hit mute, and who else? Anybody else? Jump in.
Pamela Pierre. I'm interested in freelancing, and I'm also a business owner.
Okay, cool. Wants freelance, also a business owner. What kind of business do you own?
Oh, I have a home-based business. I'm a motivational speaker.
Okay, cool.
And so I'm interested in writing copy for my web.
All right. Thank you. And now if you would hit mute. And who's next?
And I'm Hazal. I'm from Turkey. I work as a social media writer in advertising agency in Turkey. I want to improve my skills. That's why I take this course. I'm in America almost 1 year. Yeah, that's all.
Okay. And where are you from?
Turkey.
Turkey. Well, welcome. Thanks for being in the class. And I didn't catch your name because we had so much noise in the beginning. Can you say it again, please?
Hazel.
Hazel. Okay, great. Thank you. Oh, good. Whoever had that bad noise turned it off. Great. Thanks. Who's next?
Hi, this is Karen.
Go ahead. Either of you first, and then the next.
Go for it. Go for it.
This is Karen, and I live in Marin, and I am basically doing most of the marketing function for a small business, small family business.
Okay.
And I would like to use this to really sort of jump into the freelancing mode versus being just in one business.
Okay, great. And what kind of business, if you don't mind my asking?
Cosmetic medicine.
Cosmetic medicine. Okay, it just helps me to direct things more.
Yeah,
Great. Thanks,
so business to consumer.
Okay. Very good. B2C. All right. Who else? Who is going there?
Hi. My name is Shmuley. I'm from New York. I'm looking to start a career, something in this market, and
Okay.
I'm starting from fresh.
Okay. All right. Excellent. Thank you. And
one other thing, Amy, one other thing that would make it really easier is that I think some people might be on speakerphones and they play havoc with any kind of conference call. So if you could get off a speakerphone and just talk directly into hopefully your Bluetooth or something like that, but at least to be off speaker, it causes a lot of reverb. Thanks. Sorry, Amy.
Cool. Good. Who's next?
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Hi, I'm Rachel Sellers, and I'm a graphic designer in Alabama, and I'm taking this class to learn how to write copy for myself and also for one of my bigger clients who does vein and vascular care work.
And say again, your client who does what? I missed that.
Vein and vascular care work.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Vein and vascular care. I heard something totally different. Okay. Thanks. Appreciate it. Who's next?
Hi,
my name is...
Go ahead, one of you. Go ahead.
Oh, good. Yeah, Earl here. I'm in Berkeley. I'm actually an independent iPhone app developer. Just released it. It's focused on like self-help, and I'm looking to work out like how to market it through like email, through web, maybe newsletters, and so on.
Okay, great. Through email and web. I'm just taking some notes here. Okay, great. And did you say your name was Earl?
That's right.
Okay, good. Thanks. And go ahead. There was someone else was going to.
Hi, my name is Tanya. I'm in Honolulu, Hawaii. I work in a fashion retail business. I'm doing advertising copy, press releases, and social media, and also interested in doing some freelancing as well.
Press releases, social media, and wants to do freelance. Great. Okay, good. Got a good range of people here. Okay, who else? I know there's a few more. Okay. Anybody else? Going, gone. We can get everyone. You know, we'll have a Facebook group, and we'll get a chance to do more. I just wanted to get a kind of an overview. So maybe other people who are on mute can't unmute or whatever the situation. Okay. So let's get back into the presentation because we've got a lot to cover here. So we're talking about putting getting a. Go ahead. Oh, okay. So, and actually what I'm going to do is ask everyone to click the green mute microphone, if you would, just so we don't have any background noise. That'll be easiest for everyone. Or you can mute on your phone if your phone has a mute button. That works too. So you want to get a clear picture of this person in your mind. And the clearer the picture you have, and you can picture them sitting in a chair in front of you, and you write just to that person, the crisper and cleaner your copy is going to be. Instead of thinking of a general market or general population, you want to have one person in mind. Give me a slide, or I'll just say slide if that's okay with you. It doesn't sound too directive.
It's fine.
So, you know, who is this person? You know, what do they long for? What do they fear? What keeps them up at night? We talk in copywriting about speaking to people's emotion, addressing their fear, about copy presenting a problem and then solving it. And so the clearer you are on what makes this person tick and what makes them suffer and what you're providing a solution for, the better your copy is going to be. Slide.
Yay. Is it working?
So, okay, so we still have some background noise. If you can mute yourself, really appreciate it.
Hello? Sure.
Can we do a general mute, Jillian or David? Just mute everybody out. That would be really helpful. Okay. And so, Jillian, I'm going to ask you to move to the next slide, too. So you're going to picture that one person in your mind's eye and write to that one person, and always one person. So the idea is that you're not writing to the general you, you're writing to the one person. And so what I mean by that is, you know, pay attention, and you'll read a lot of copy, maybe even your own copy, where you talk to people as if they're an audience. You know, like I could say, you know, some of you listening might already know this. Or I could say to you, you might already know this. You might already know this is way more pointed. There's only one person reading, not a group of people. If you think in terms of writing to the group, then you write in the plural. You write to that person, and it's just less effective because, you know, we see ourselves as the one person in the crowd. And the more something is addressed directly to us, the more we sit up and pay attention. So you want to just be focused on that one person. And I'm hitting this, you know, trying to hit this from a couple of different ways to drive the point home, because it's one of these things that you've got to look at your writing, and I want you to start looking at things that you read and look for this particular thing. Are people writing in the plural to a group, or are they writing to a single person? Because it's something, even when you know it, you'll catch yourself over and over, and it's a really quick way to tighten up your copy. And it'll also help you to focus when you're starting to write the copy. When you write it and you go back and edit and you find examples of the plural, you're going to find ways to improve your copy very quickly. So let's talk about an actual piece of copy and writing copy. So the copy always starts with the headline or the lead. And we're going to talk about two different things here today as examples. We're going to talk about ads, and we're going to talk about sales letters. And for those of you who are thinking web or thinking writing for the web, much of what we do in sales letters is what we do in info pages or sales pages on the web. We'll talk in one of our sections about the web more specifically. And there's some different things that you need to know when you're writing for the web about, you know, how people move through your content and how people digest content. It's obviously different than if somebody's got a letter in their hand. But I still think that the sales letter, and I'm not alone in this, there's a lot of copywriters and a lot of copy teachers who teach this. If you can master the sales letter and the fundamentals in the sales letter, you can write any kind of copy. You know, how you parse it is different, but the ideas all flow from the sales letter. So if you look at starting your copy, you always start with the headline or the lead. It's what some people call the big idea. So what is it that you're selling? Well, you know, what's the big idea that you have? And, you know, understand that not everything is some, you know, big brand new highfalutin idea. Some things are and some things aren't. But your copy will do really well, and your promotions, if what you present something as a new idea. You give something a twist. There's all kinds of clever ways to tease out ideas and give a twist to what to you may seem like an old idea because you know it so well. And so if you start with a headline or a lead or a big idea, write several. You know, you don't have to edit them. You don't have to edit them yet. And the best, you know, one of the things that people tell me frequently is they don't know how to start. You know, how do I get in? You know, because you look at the project and it's often overwhelming, you know, because you're thinking about the end result and, you know, getting from, you know, the start line to the finish line, and you're thinking about the finish line and what's in between. But once you get started, it becomes way easier. And so what you want to do is just come up with some ideas, and don't get married to any of it. Don't worry about editing it. Don't worry about the finished piece. Just put down some ideas, and they may be keepers and they may not. But what you want to do is to get started. And if you can't come up with the big idea, or you can't come up with the lead, then start the body copy, and we'll talk about that here in a moment, what that looks like. But you want to come up with a few ideas. And just start, you can even start writing a narrative stream about the product that isn't copy, what it is, what it does. One of the ways to get started on a piece that's really helpful, Jillian, flip the slide for me if you would, is to take some index cards and write out, I know this is old-fashioned, but it's a really good way to think. Connecting your hand with paper it really gets ideas flowing. So if you take index cards and you create bullets, what are the key bullets about this product that you want to convey? And these could be big ideas, or they could just be features and benefits. And if you write them on index cards, what you're able to do then is you can move them around and put them in order, get rid of the ones that serve, keep the ones that don't. You may do that as you develop your letter. You may even do that with phrases. We'll talk later on in the course about writing your copy and cutting it up and editing it and figuring out what really works and what doesn't. But if you can come up with your bullets, 4 to 6 key reasons, whether or not you ever use any of these is not important at the starting process. The idea process is really important. And if you know your subject really well, then you can sit down and do this. If you know your subject really well, so well that you don't have any ideas, look at what some of your competitors are doing. Not suggesting stealing what they're doing, but see if there's another door in. Does somebody have another angle, another twist, another way that they're presenting the product or the service? And write those down and just get them as your bullet points. I mean, if it works easier for you to do it in front of a computer screen, do it that way. I find that it's really helpful to connect the mind with the pen with the paper, and then have something visual that you can then play with and physically move around. I think it really gets the idea juices flowing. And so you want to, as you're creating these bullet points, you want to bring in the USP, or the unique selling proposition. So throughout your copy, and we're talking always here about direct response, is the question, why should I buy from you instead of your competitor? What is the thing that you offer? What will I get if I buy it from you instead of buying it from somebody else? And that can be a lot of things. Your USP can be based on a lot of different things. It's it could be price, it could be service, it could be quality, it could be uniqueness, it could be any number of things. And there's even some clever things, and we'll work on this as we work on copy. There are some clever things that you can tease out, or that you can learn about your market. I'll just give you an example of that. I ghost wrote a book for a woman who teaches people how to make money owning a grooming salon, grooming animals. And when she opened her salon, she opened it in a neighborhood that had a couple of other salons, and she ended up choosing a location. She chose the location based on price. It was something that she could afford. It was downtown. She thought it was pretty convenient, but she was in competition with other people. So what she did is she lowered her price, because she thought that'd be a good way to bring people in, and she brought them in at a cheap introductory price. Whatever it was $50 to bring your dog in. She would do it for $20 for the first time. And what she found out after not very long was that she had a lot of people who came in once for $20 and didn't come back. She found out that people that shopped for price were not really her ideal client. They were people she didn't like doing business with. But in that process, she started talking to various people and asking them, what was important to them and what did they want. And what she found out was there was a niche for people who could drop their pets off and get curbside service. And the two niches were people who were older, for whom it was difficult to get out of the car, and moms who had all kinds of kids strapped into the car, and to bring the dog in and not leave their kids outside, they had to unstrap the kids, get out the dog, come in. Sometimes where she happened to be was in a northern state where there's a lot of inclement weather. You've got ice, you've got snow. That was difficult for elderly people. It was tough for the moms with little kids and toddlers, and that became her USP. Her USP was curbside service, and all it meant was they had to walk out the door to somebody's car. It took them, less than a minute. They could bring the dog in on a leash. The person didn't have to get out of the car. It was a great USP. Her business boomed. So what I'm suggesting here is it could be some little thing that, you're serving a market somebody else isn't doing, your competitors aren't doing, you don't even know there's a need, but there's sometimes a great USP that serves your market that can really set you apart, that doesn't have to be anything that you change. That's not all that unique, although it is innovative. So give me the next slide if you would. So you want to create a big promise. And Jillian, feel free, of course, to interrupt me at any time. I'm moving very quickly because we've got so much to cover in a short time today. So you want to create a big promise. What will I get? What will I get if I do business with you? And you want to make sure that the body copy stays in touch with the big promise and the headline and lead. And this happens a lot. I do it myself. You start out with one premise, and then you've got a couple of ideas, and before you know it, you're on another premise, and so you're not following through. One of the techniques that we'll teach and that you'll come to use, and this works great on the web and in sales letters, is when you create those bullets that we talked about, and now you put together your letter. You create a letter, and I like letters with headlines. It's a more recent technique. Letters never used to have headlines. I think they're really compelling, and what it allows you to do then is take your bulleted ideas and create subheads. And so with a letter, and again, this is hard copy or on the web, if somebody can read your premise through your subheads so that your subheads become your key points, and I can read your headline, and the headline should tell me if this is for me, right? It should speak to something about me. So I go, oh, yeah, this is interesting. This is something that addresses an issue, concern, problem that I have. And then I should be able to skim through, looking at subheads, and essentially read a really short version of the entire copy. So that I go through, I look at the subheads, I look at the PS, and I've got the basic premise, and I'm intrigued enough that now I want to go back and understand it all. I want to understand what this is and what it'll do. In other words, I'm willing to read, to give 5-10 minutes, whatever it is of my time, to read the entire piece. So you want to make sure that you use the subheads and that the body copy stays in touch with the big premise and your big promise and the headline lead. And that's one way to be sure that you've done it, is you lay out your headline and your subheads, and then you can actually use that as a formula and fill in the copy if you like to. So you want to also make sure that you've always presented the benefits of every feature. And so this is another place where you can use a cut and paste, or you can use cards where you put the benefits into sentences and you play with the order of them. Because sometimes the thing that you think is going to be the most important turns out not to be. And if you move them around, you sometimes get the exact right order. So I've got a little example of this. This is from a campaign that I did last year. And the headline, this was a sales letter, and it was used on the web, and it was used snail mail. And the headline was, "The American Dream has changed have you." Dear name, does this description fit you? You have a healthy six-figure income and some enviable perks and benefits. You've paid your dues in late meetings and long hours, unrealistic expectations, lost sleep, crappy airport meals, missed family events. Maybe you've compromised your health. So you can tell by reading that who we're talking to. We're talking to the corporate exec road warrior, the person who's traveling around and tired and etc. And so and we'll work more with this letter, not today, but we will work more with this letter as we go through the course. But what happens is we've talked about the American dream, and now we've gone on to describe the person who was going for the American dream and what their life might look like now. So it's the lead that follows the headline. Give me the next slide, please. So here's what we're going to work on this week. We're going to do 2 different projects. And the one thing that excuse me, I'm going to have you do and create is we're going to work with this idea of a hair growth product for men. And I'm going to give you the choice to do either an ad or a short letter, and we're going to cover the pieces for both. And so when you start to write an ad, like we were talking about, or a sales letter, you want to picture that person. You want to picture, you know, for me, I actually picture two of my nephews who are young. They're in their 20s, and they're both balding, and they've actually both talked to me about that recently, and what that feels like. And they like to tease each other and make fun of each other, and they're actually terrified that they're going to lose their hair. And what are they? What they're afraid of. Nobody's afraid that they're just going to lose their hair. Everyone's afraid of what that represents, right? I mean, your hair, losing your hair doesn't harm your health. Doesn't have any impact really, except on how you feel, right? And so what does that translate into? They think they're going to be less attractive. If they're less attractive, maybe they're going to have less sex. We don't necessarily talk about sex in the copy. That's why I have romance here. That's how it's referred to. Your romantic life, or the romance in your life. And someone might come out and say less sex, but probably not. There's a perceived loss of virility, lost confidence, because it's a cultural thing. That's how they're afraid that they will be perceived as, if they're less sexually attractive and they're less virile, then they're going to feel less confident as men. It represents aging. Something, like it or not, it happens, but we all have our issues with it, and how that feels, and our lost youth, and all of these things that it represents. And so these are the kinds of things that you want to address with your hair growth product. You don't want to just talk about a growing hair and the healthy hair you'll have, and all that's well and good, but those are features. We want to get down to what people's problem is. What do they fear about losing their hair? Next slide, please. So I want you to think about this and think, so what's the most compelling thing of these factors? Can you write a headline? And I want you to do this, not right now, but this will be one of the assignments this week, is to write a headline and to grab attention using these fears. And so what I'm going to ask you to do is, write out the fears. Write out, you can use some of these, come up with some of your own. And what kind of a headline can you write so that the man who is fearing and feeling all of those things, what's going to grab him? What do you write so he says, oh, that's me. Yeah, I need that. I need to know what this is. Restore your hair and your confidence. All right, so we already know he's losing his hair. He's lost his hair. He's worried about that. We know he's losing confidence. Someone looks at that and they go, restore your hair and your confidence, and they go, oh yeah, ooh, that's me. Even if they haven't been thinking about lacking confidence, that's something that taps into one of the fears we know we have. A thick head of hair equals more romance. Oh, okay, yeah, that's something I've been worried about, and so you're saying a thick head of hair. For somebody who has a thick head of hair, they can just gloat and go, oh, yeah, that's me. Somebody who doesn't, they're like, ooh, more dates, more sex, more romance. Maybe this is something that I should act on, because that's the big promise, right? The big promise is more romance. The big fear is that they don't have a thick head of hair. So thick head of hair equals more romance. And these are just some made-up ideas, obviously. Another is restore your hair in only 4 weeks. And what that speaks to is quick, right? We all like things to happen quickly. And if say you restore your hair, okay, but restore your hair in 4 weeks, that means, boy, I could do that before the fill-in-the-blank event, or, it can happen quickly. It's not going to be some long, drawn-out process, and it makes it more of a promise. So, don't forget the features and benefits. So the features of your hair grow for men is it grows hair. And again, these are made-up features. So we didn't know what this product is. It's a fictitious product. So it grows hair, it's easy to use, it's not messy, and there's revolutionary technology. So it's not some, goopy thing that you're going to, have to get disgusting and mix products and whatever it is. It's easy to use, it's simple, and it's a revolutionary technology. And we, one of the reasons that we even include revolutionary technology as a feature is because that's appealing. Everyone wants to be cutting edge, right? And we at least have a bias that if we talk technology to men, then they're interested. I'm not sure that that's not true for women too, but that's certainly a cultural bias that we have. That if it's a hot techno gadget or product, that men will be more interested, and so we want to appeal to that as well. Jillian, anything you want to add about benefits and features before we move on? I'm just cruising through here.
Go ahead. You're good.
Okay, so here's the benefits of those features that we just mentioned. You're going to have more confidence. So this is not time-consuming, right? Because remember, it's a excuse me, it's a quick fix. So it's not time-consuming. There's not a lot of screwing around to get this thing to work for you. It's just gonna happen. You're not gonna have to mix things, make things, and you'll actually use it. Because how many things do you buy and then you go, oh, this is a mess. This is too complicated. Why'd I ever buy it? And I don't want to use this. What we're telling them here is, it's easy to use. It's not messy. You'll actually use it, and it's revolutionary. It's cutting edge and cool. So, when we said grows hair, that was a feature. A benefit is you'll be more confident. It's easy to use, so it's not time consuming. You don't have to, screw around with it for a long time. It's just something that you can use. It's not messy, so you'll actually, use it. And finally, if it's revolutionary technology, you're cutting edge and cool. So you're not, you're not a geek anymore. You're the cool guy. And so that's what we want to be telling them. So if you're laying out the negative and painting a picture, switch the slide please. Laying out the negative and you're painting a picture of the fear and the disappointment, and then you're laying out the positive, and that's the removal of the fear and anxiety. So you're providing a solution. So what happens here, and the next thing that happens in the mind of your prospect is, how do I know this is going to work? Because remember, what we're trying to do is paint a picture so that they really want it. And once they really want it, what happens for them next? What's next in the psychological process? Is this really going to work? I don't know. Geez, it's $50. Yeah, I could spend the $50, but I could also spend the $50 on any number of other things that they might be interested in. So that's where the doubt starts to come in. I've read things like this before, and I've bought things I've never used. So now you've got all their doubts coming up. Because the first thing that can happen is they can read it and go, yeah, I don't want this. I don't believe it anyway. So you've already lost them. But if they do believe and buy into what you're offering and they think it's for them, now your next obstacle is that they have to believe that it's going to work. So you have to remove the obstacles to buying. Once they've decided that, I'm a little bit curious about this, you have to remove whatever is going to come up for them. And it's just a natural cycle. It's how our minds work. So there's a lot of ways you can provide proof. Flip the slide if you would. You can use testimonials, you can use pictures. You've all seen the before and after picture. Those are particularly, great with something like this, with weight loss or hair gain or teeth whitening or teeth repairing. Somebody smiles and their teeth look awful, and then they smile and their teeth are beautiful and they're attractive. The picture tells 1,000 words. It could be audio, it could be video. There's lots of ways that you can provide proof. But what you do is you reassure your buyer that yes, in fact, this is true, and you provide proof. Here's what happened for Sam Jones in Oklahoma City when he used Hair Grow for Men, and probably there's a picture of Sam looking depressed and bald. Now there's a picture of Sam looking looking great in great clothes with a full head of hair and maybe a beautiful woman on his arm. Cliche perhaps, sexist perhaps. But there you go, and you see it all the time. And if that's what he wants, then that's what you're selling him. So by removing the excuse me, sorry, give me 1 second here. So there's a lot of ways to remove the obstacles. There's, you're providing, you can provide proof. You can also give a guarantee. You can offer a trial period. You can offer no money down, an introductory price, a liberal return policy, a sample. So let's talk about those. Once you are providing proof, and somebody says, okay, yeah, I see this worked for Sam in Oklahoma. This might work for me too. well, geez, what happens if it doesn't work for me? Okay, well, there's a guarantee. Try this for 60 days, and if you don't get the results you want, you get your money back, no questions asked. There can be a trial period, and there's lots of ways that you can do this. This is less common on the web than in traditional snail mail kind of offers, but you can still offer it. I mean, a trial period can be a money back period. It can be you can offer something with no money down. Try it for X number of days, and some you can do this with tangible products. You can do it with intangibles too. You can do it with information products. You can do it with physical products. You can offer an introductory price for a limited time only. You can get this product. It's sells for $49.95. You can get it for $29.95 if you order by midnight May 15th. After that, the price goes up. Well, geez, if I'm going to try it, I might as well try it now. It's only going to cost me $30. And it's interesting because maybe the real price is $100 and the trial price is $69, but you still feel like you're saving a significant amount. So geez, I better try it before the price goes up. Liberal return policy, you'll take it back, no questions asked. Doesn't matter. You don't like it, you return it. All of these things that give people an out. And the truth is, and we know this as marketers, and we probably know it as consumers as well. We mostly don't return things. How many things can you look around at that you've bought that you weren't happy with, that maybe had a guarantee, and you haven't done anything about it. And so, from the marketer's point of view, and again, we're assuming that you're selling something of value. What you want to do is get it into the consumer's hands. And if they don't like it, you do want to take it back. You need to make these policies, and you need to make them real and make them effective. But what you know is that 90% of the people are never going to act on them. What they are is greasing the skids so that they feel confident to buy. So moving on. So the guarantees are important, and we've covered this because the people need to rationalize their purchase. They need to feel like they're protected, and that they're not going to get burnt by buying the product. And this is particularly true. Well, let me say it's less true if you're buying something in person. If you're in a store, you know what the policy is. It's a very different experience. But if you're selling something online or you're selling something through the mail, there's a step removed, and you don't feel like you're dealing with a person. You don't have all of the physical tangibles that you can give people in an in-person experience. And so people need to rationalize their purchase, and you need to build trust with them. And so you're really entering into the realm of agreement. You're no longer just making a sale, but you're making an agreement. You're creating a relationship with this person. You're telling them, what you will do if they do. So if you spend money on this product, here's what we will do for you. Not only all the benefits that the product is going to deliver, but here's what we will deliver to you, the consumer, as a guarantee, as a promise. And the more proof you offer, the bigger your promise is, the more people believe that you stand behind what you're offering. And the more you stand behind it, the more they believe in the proof, because you obviously have confidence in it, or you wouldn't offer that. And it suddenly seems more real, more tangible, and more desirable as well. So you're dispelling excuse me, the negative feelings that crop up in the sales experience, and it's natural. That's how it works. So what are some negative feelings?
Hey, Amy, before you run up there, I want to just point back to something that you just said, because I think that this is huge, and that is that enters the realm of agreement as opposed to a sale. And that everybody needs to see that this is really the difference between selling the way we're talking about selling now, whether we're doing it through an ad where it's not personable. Because I think you nailed it. It is now about an agreement. This is more about selling what you're selling, how you're describing it to them, because they can't hold it. And I think that it's important to hold that notion when you're writing your copy. I just think that was a really big point, and they needed to really hear that.
Good. Thank you.
You bet.
And thanks for bringing it back and underscoring it.
Yeah,
so,
it really needed to be.
Yeah, and so all these negative feelings come up, right? Because you're looking at something, and we've all done this. You've done this. You think you're about buying something, and then you talk yourself into it, and you talk yourself out of it. And it's not really price-based. A lot of what happens in this sales and marketing process is, if I have something, I have to convince you that it's worth parting with, $30 or $300 or $3,000 for. And if it's something that you need and you're not ready to reach into your wallet, or I'm not, it's because I'm not convinced enough that it's going to solve my problem. And so all of these things bridge that barrier. It's a sales letter you're going to get when we're done with class to work on this really well, and we'll talk about that a little more next week. But what you're doing here is you're addressing their negative feelings. You know that this isn't going to work for them. You know, we're telling them, oh, they're going to have more sex, they're going to have more romance, and they're going like, yeah, right, that's going to happen, sure. You know, what if it doesn't work? You know, then I'm going to be out I'm going to be out $50. Can I really afford that? Do I really want to spend that? Wouldn't it be better spent elsewhere? You know, is there a money back guarantee? You know, what's the ultimate satisfaction that you can offer somebody? I mean, hey, try it. If you don't like it, you don't have to use it. You get your money back. There is absolutely no risk. You're just removing the risk, and you're building the trust. And so that's what builds the bridge between the customer sitting over here, the product or service that you've got, and you know the bridge of the dollars flowing from one to the other is for you to, you know, not just to let them know that this is something that they really need, but they feel safe and comfortable making the purchase. Because if they don't, it doesn't matter how great the product is, they're just not going to buy it because they're afraid. We're all afraid we're going to get hoodwinked, ripped off, and it happens. So you've got to address that right in your copy. So in a sales letter, and this I think PSs work really great. Doesn't matter if you're on the web or if you're writing hard copy. Remember back to what we said about doing a headline and then creating subheads that tell the story. You use the PS to reinforce that. And observe yourself when you read something. Do you skim? When you get a letter, do you look at the top and then do you flip it over and look at the back? Very typically people do, and so what they see is the PS. And so one of the things that you want to do in the PS is put the guarantee and restate the benefits. Really what you want to do is you'd like the essence of your offer in the PS, or the essence of your curiosity piquer, if you will, to be in your PS. So if somebody could read your PS, they'd know the whole offer. So you restate the benefits, and then you can use a postscript, a PPS, to cement credibility further. So you want to make a compelling case. There's got to be genuine value, and you want to, and I'm on the next slide here, but you want to, because I'm going to go through very quickly, you want to truly solve a problem and provide a real benefit. So your copy wants to do all of these things. So now you've got a first draft, and I do want you to write a first draft of a hair grow. We're going to call it hair grow, HAIR-GRO, hair grow for men. And I want you to write a first draft, and you can do a sales letter if you want, and you can do an ad if you want. But I want you to write a first draft of hair grow for men. So once you do this, what do you do next? You let it sit. Make your best effort, do all the pieces that you need to do, and I'm not suggesting that you'll do it in one sitting. Good copy often comes together in several sittings, and you might sit down and do the cards and put it together, and then you may step away and you'll come back. It really is a process, not an event, writing any good piece. Sometimes you're under the gun and you have to write something quick, and you do the best you can do. But if the longer your copy has, and by long I don't mean a month, but if you can have days or even hour chunks between writing something and come back and look at it. Just leave it, go on to something else, clear your head, let it sit, and then come back and see it with fresh eyes. You'll be able to edit it, and you'll be able to see much more clearly what works and what doesn't. So you want to go back then, and you want to flip the slide. You want to edit, and just be ruthless. You do a first read through, you read again, and what'll happen, and you've probably experienced this when you read anything that you've written. You've got this little glitchy place that you always stop. You're reading along, and then you get to somewhere and you find, I don't know, does that work? There's something funny there. If that happens more than once or twice, it doesn't work. It just doesn't work. It either needs to go or it belongs somewhere else. So start there. Start with, just read it through. But do a read through when you come back. And I don't care even if it's an ad and, we're talking about, 100 words. But read it through without editing it. Just read the whole thing. I can't tell you how many times I've started to edit because I want to add something, and I go ahead and edit it, and then I read in the next paragraph that I included it. It's like I've already done it, and make more work for myself. So you want to go through, start with those glitchy places. If it doesn't feel right, start there. So read it all through, Go back and correct it. See, can you cut it out? What happens? Read it, cover it up. Read it without that. So here are just some checkpoints for you. Do the sentences flow one to the next? So do you introduce a new concept because you've got all these concepts in your mind? That's good, but they need to bridge one to the other, because if it's jarring, people will stop reading. If it's engaging, they will continue. So do the sentences and paragraphs flow? And are they in the correct order? Because often they're not. You write these things and you find that you haven't ordered them in the priority of the person. So what you want to do, remember, is your headline wants to tie into your lead, which means you want to address what you've promised in the headline. And that there's all different ways to do that, and we'll cover those. But you want to say something more about them, so they say, oh, this is me, like in the example I gave you about the American dream. And we went on to describe the tired executive. The point of that lead is for that, we want that person to be nodding their head and going, yeah, yeah, late nights, crappy food, too many airports, haven't seen my family, So what we want them to do is identify, because they keep reading, because, oh, this is something about me, and what's more interesting than me to all of us, to each one of us, right? So does every single word and sentence move the reader forward and serve the mission of the copy? And this is something we'll talk about time and time again, but when you write something that's really great, it's very, very hard to edit it because you get attached to it. Flip the slide, Jillian, if you would. But you want to edit with a chainsaw, basically. Most things are longer than they need to be. Less is more with words, and the more concise way you can say it, the better. You want to look for uses of the word that. That often precedes something that describes, that doesn't need description. It's probably could be more concise and better if you break it down and don't include what that describes. So just look for that in your copy, that and so that. That's a really quick copy editing tip that'll clean your copy really quickly. Take out passive language. He walked down the hall. He ran down the corridor like his hair was on fire. Walk down the hall. Take out anything passive. Try and paint images and pictures and create some movement and some action. Take out future tense. Write everything in the present, right now. Not you will have, or it will be. Well, you want to paint a picture of people's brilliant future. You want to write it in the present tense as if it's happening right now. And keep your sentences short. They have to. If something goes on too long, people won't read it. They lose interest. It's better to have more short, pithy sentences than a long, what you might think is an elegant and brilliant paragraph. So you want to pay attention to keeping things concise. And remember, your subheads tell the story. So you want to go back and look and make sure that you have subheads. And if you write a piece, and it's sometimes not easy to write in the subheads, if you use that bullet technique, what you might do is you might write the subheads first and then fill in the body copy. If you don't, if you try a more narrative technique where you just start writing, don't worry about it. What you can do is go back when you edit and pull out a key bullet and make it the subhead. And that works really, really well. You go and say, oh, what's this about? What's the most important thing? And now you may have to change it a little bit so it leads into the body copy. But that's a really powerful way to get great subheads. So make sure that you keep the subheads, and make sure you have subheads is what I mean to say. Sorry about that. And so editing is often much more work than writing, because we get married to what we've got. We get married to what's clever. We get married to the phrases that we like. We get married to these ideas, and they become our darlings. They just do. You have a really clever turn of phrase. A really good way to describe something, but sometimes you need to kill it. It just isn't. It doesn't fit. It doesn't serve your mission. It doesn't serve the purpose of the piece. And so, somebody might be saying, "Oh yeah, editing's harder than writing. Writing's hard enough." If you can write, you can even do a brain dump. You can go back and probably clean it up into some pretty decent copy. And that's way easier, I think, than agonizing over every word and trying to write perfect copy. Because if you do that, it's time-consuming. You'll second-guess yourself. You'll doubt yourself. And you can really get into a spin around one phrase or one paragraph. And you're way better to just write it out and then go back and improve it. Because the basic ideas can then be written more cleverly, more craftily, more intelligently, using action phrases. But if you get down the basic ideas, you're going to feel much better. You're going to feel like you're on the way, and at least there's some bones now that you can hang on. So that's a really good way to get started. So,
Amy, before you run off into the next one, I just want to say that what you've said here again, to underscore this, editing is often much more work than the writing, but the other piece to the editing, I think, is that without it, you don't have good copy, and it doesn't matter who you are and how well you think you write. Editing is where the magic is. Yes, this is where this is what separates those who write incredible copy and those who get along. Am I right?
Absolutely, and letting it take the time that it takes.
Absolutely.
And that doesn't mean forever, but that means, it's funny because some projects, I find that I'll write something really quickly and I'll think, well, this can't be any good. It happened too fast. And, it turns out it was great. And I'll go back and write a second thing, and it turns out the first thing was perfectly adequate. I don't always do that. It happens sometimes.
But that, I think, is another piece that people need to realize, that it's like anything else, that the more that they do this, their brain will practice what they're doing, and so the better they'll get. Their first drafts will actually start looking really classy because their brain has been taught. It's the same thing as when you sit and look at a piece of paper or your blank page on the screen, and it's like, what do I write? And you have to sit there. And even if you have to write, I don't know what to write, as many times as you need to until an idea comes. But you can't get up and do anything else. You have to sit there because this is the time you put aside to write. The more you do it, your brain gets better at it. And I think this is what you're really saying to everybody, is that you have to do it and then edit it and go back and look at it and edit it. And you train your pen, you train your hand, you train your brain, and that's how great copy is created. So.
And we'll talk about different ways in, but and if you sit there and you don't have an idea, write out the benefits and features, and then imagine that person, and imagine it's your best friend or it's your brother, and you're convincing him how much better his life is going to be when he has hair, and even if sometimes it seems ridiculous. So write it down. Write down something ridiculous, and then from the ridiculous comes the sublime, and figure out what in between there is really going to tell your story. So here's a couple of things here. So make a copy. Remove anything that keeps catching you. Again, it's that little glitchy piece. Start there. Remove entire sentences. Play around with it. Don't delete anything permanently. Move them to another page, move them to a new document, whatever, and reread for clarity and crispness. If something doesn't work, well, how does it read without it? And you'll be shocked sometimes. You go, oh, it reads much better. I didn't even need that at all. Maybe you've gone, too deep down the rabbit hole. You've described too much. Get input from a coach, a mentor, a copy colleague. We'll be reviewing copy every week, actually, in this class. But have somebody that you trust, that knows what you're trying to achieve, to look over your shoulder. And Jillian just hit on this. Your writing will improve. This is like anything else. You have to be a beginner before you can be intermediate and before you can be good. And it's like anything else that you do, you've got to practice. If you wanted to learn to play an instrument today, you'd get lessons, excuse me, and you'd practice. You were brand new to tennis, you'd pick up the racket, you'd get lessons, you'd practice. And, you keep going and you show up week after week, and finally a few months from now, it's like, wow, I'm winning games. Same thing with your copy. Focus on one area at a time, and you'll move on to others with greater confidence. And by one area, that might be a niche. It might be, focus on ads, focus on sales letters, focus on what it is you need in your business. And you'll find if you do those repetitively, you'll build confidence and you'll build chops pretty quickly. But be patient with yourself. Don't expect to be perfect overnight. And even when you're really experienced, we all have days where you think everything you're writing is total crap, and then you have other days where everything seems brilliant. So what we're going to do this week, and just to give you just some logistics about how this is going to work, the last point there was to emulate pieces that you like and write them out. So this is a tried and true copy technique. You're going to probably groan when you hear it, but it really works, is to write something out longhand. And there's something really interesting that happens, and I'll be curious to hear about your experience. There's something that really interesting that happens in your brain when you're writing. And I've heard it described that you can't really do anything else, and it's very hard to think about something else when you're literally reading something and copying it and writing. unlike typing or even some other methods where you can be distracted and you can not multitask but multi-think. This gets you focused on exactly what you're doing, and it's a really good creative process. But one of the interesting things about copying over a sales letter and copying it by hand is you've written the sales letter, and you start to understand after you've written it a couple of times, you really start to understand what goes into it psychologically, what goes into it in terms of the craft. I've chosen a letter that's fairly long. I think I'm going to pick out a shorter one too. I think this long one has a ton of good meat in it, and so I'm going to challenge you to do the longer one. But I think I'm going to choose a shorter one too, just so I make sure that you all do it, because I think some people maybe won't do this longer one. But I'm going to encourage you to do it. So what I want you to do this week is two things. Normally we're going to have just one thing to do, but I want to get you started and get you on the fast track. So I want you to copy this letter, and I want you to write or start to write. So the letter you can do, because that doesn't require anything except carving out the time and sitting down and doing it. The other process, is starting to write copy, and I want you to write either an ad or a short sales letter for the Hair Grow for Men. So I want you to actually write an original piece of copy for the Hair Grow for Men product. And this list here, this slide here, this is regarding the letter that you're to copy, and I want you to make a list of questions that pop up for you. What's the point of a technique? Why does he use a certain idea? Something that you do differently, something you don't understand. Anything else that jumps out at you, I'd like you to write down what that is and bring it to class. So here's how we're going to work. We're about a minute over, but I just want to give you the broad strokes here. So there'll be a Facebook group. You'll get an invitation to that. You'll have an opportunity to, cohort and talk with other people in the class. It'll be a place to post questions. If we can get some good interaction going, I'll certainly participate in the Facebook group. We all will, and we can give you some stuff between the class so that you get even more out of it. But the other thing that we'll do is we'll post the assignments so that you'll have access to what you need. You'll also have a recording of the class. So as we do assignments like writing the copy, like the Hair Grow for Men, I'd like to discuss these and give you feedback in class. So if you would like to do that, what I'm going to ask you to do is send them to us directly. So, and we'll give you an address for that as we do the Facebook. So I'm not sure what we'll do, but we'll get you that in the next 24 hours. So I'll ask you to send that directly so that we can critique it or give some feedback, and we can talk about it in the class. And so what we'll ask is that we have that by Monday night for the Wednesday class, because we need some time to be able to look at it and incorporate it into what we do. So anything that you can get us by Monday night, we will address. So I don't think that we have an open mic, or I take questions. So what I'll ask you to do instead is any questions you've got during the week as we're working is to pop them into the Facebook group, and we'll make sure that we monitor them and get back to you, so you have access to us while you're working on the material, and you get the max benefit and value. So we've only gone a couple minutes over. Thanks for hanging in and for your patience. And
before everybody runs off, Amy, let me just throw this out. In order to have an open mic, if everybody will come with a clean background, no noise. In other words, you carve this hour out to actually be here and be present. It will make it well worth your time to be able to come and interact in the moment. So it's not a big class. We can open up the mics if everybody does that. But it only takes one to have, phones ringing, kids in the background, and not carve the time out. So do what you can, or bring a phone that you can mute so that we can all participate. You will be amazed at the difference that you'll get. Yes, Amy?
Absolutely. Excuse me. Show up and be present, and I think that's true everywhere. The more you can show up and be present and not be multitasking, the more you get out of every experience. It's a novel concept anymore. So yeah, and so we'll look forward to your interaction, shooting any questions. We'd really, really like to do this open mic, because then it becomes, I think it becomes more valuable for you in the long run. So thank you for being here, and look out for an email with instructions for what's next. And I think David will have these posted by the next morning, so you can expect all that information sometime tomorrow morning. Thank you. Bye now.